of the Ganges, a book donated by one of our Sangis from his guru, Swami Tadatmanandaji, talking about his journey to become a renunciant, a monk. Earlier in the live, we were reading about his physical journey to the way of Swami Dayananda's ashram. And we had just arrived at a metal gate whose sign announced in Hindi and English, Swami Dayananda Ashram. I sent the driver back with a generous tip. Then I hoisted my backpack and opened the gate in the masonry wall encircling the ashram grounds. Inside, stucco buildings stood on the left and right, facing a large central courtyard. Before me was an expanse of carefully manicured grass, a deep green oasis surrounded on all sides by beautiful flowering plants and bushes. Tall trees lined the walkways and dotted the park-like campus. Brightly painted benches were strategically placed for enjoying the panoramic view of the river Ganges as it emerged from the mountains. This ashram traces its beginnings to 1962, when a young monk from South India named Swami Dayananda Saraswati came here to live in a thatched hut on the bank of the Ganges. Each day he went to a nearby Annakshetra, a soup kitchen for sadhus, for his meals. He lived a simple, contemplative life, continuing his scriptural studies at a nearby ashram and conducting daily classes for others in the shade of a tree in front of his hut. When his hut accidentally burnt down, a tin shanty took its place. Later, a brick cottage was built, followed by a couple of guest rooms and a kitchen. Slowly, over a span of 3 decades, the Swami Dayananda Ashram evolved from this humble beginning. In its present form, more than 80 rooms accommodate residents and guests within the smallest 3-acre compound. The lecture hall is spacious and well-equipped. Hidden above the dining hall is an extensive library that contains many rare Sanskrit books. This ashram is one of 100 or more in Rishikesh. Some of them are simple cottages, and others are so palliato that they make this ashram seem modest by comparison. Ashrams are like monasteries, except that ashram residents need not be monks. Even married couples and families may stay in an ashram. An ashram is primarily a retreat center, a place for seekers to come for meditation, prayer, scriptural study, and other spiritual practices. Each ashram's program is different. Some emphasize yoga, meditation, or scriptural studies, while others are focused more on prayer and devotional singing. Many visitors come for a spiritual holiday, staying a few days or weeks. Some feel drawn to stay months or years. A few find that a particular ashram's lifestyle is ideally suited to their temperaments and choose to live there permanently. As I surveyed the ashram's grounds, memories of previous visits flooded my mind. More than 2 years had passed since I last came. About 30 residents lived here then. I was the only Westerner among them. The others came from all corners of India and countries like Sri Lanka and Malaysia. Except for a handful of senior swamis who were permanent residents, most of the students were in their 20s and 30s who had come for a few years of scriptural study and meditation. Some I had met on previous visits. Living with them, I became part of their spiritual community. We studied together, prayed together, and dined together. Sometimes we played together, even though flowing robes and saris are not entirely suitable for chasing frisbees. The residents were not saints, although some were indeed saintly. They were of diverse temperaments, a situation that sometimes led to minor bickering. But because they all came for a common purpose, their shared commitment had molded the diverse group into an extended family. I felt happy when they warmly welcomed me into their family each time I arrived. Hello, Junior Geek. I walked to the ashram's cluttered main office, where I found Swami Sudananda, the manager, sitting behind a desk strewn with papers. He stood to greet me and pressed his hands together, saying, "Namaste." I bent over and touched his feet in reverence, as a Hindu decorum requires. Long ago, I overcame my discomfort in doing this when I learned that Hindu children are taught to touch the feet of their parents, relatives, teachers, and elders in general. It is simply a form of respect. I rose and politely replied, "Namaste, Swamiji." Swami Sudananda was a soft-spoken man in his 60s, whose protruding stomach conveyed a sense of contentment. Gray stubble covered his face and head. He shaved them both completely every month. He was unlike any manager I had known, so easygoing and quick to smile. Over the past 20 years, he had personally planned and supervised every aspect of the ashram's construction. He had dedicated his life to this work. In fact, this work was his spiritual practice. Swami Sudananda was clad in orange robes, the customary attire for swamis. He wore a cotton dhoti, a sarong-like cloth wrapped around the waist reaching to the ground. A smaller upper cloth was draped over his shoulders. Monks in India have worn these simple, unstitched robes for thousands of years. They are a visible emblem of the sannyasi's chosen role in life and serves the same purpose as the religious habits worn by Christian monks and nuns. The color of such robes varies somewhat, but it is always a shade of orange, like saffron or ochre. Orange is the color of fire. It symbolizes both purification and light. It is said that spiritual aspirants must first be purified to be prepared for their spiritual journeys. Only then can they receive the light of knowledge, the light that destroys the darkness of ignorance and delusion, the light that reveals truth. Originally, the robes were dyed using geru, red ochre, a reddish-orange earth found here. This natural coloring washes out easily, so frequent treatments were required. Most sannyasis now prefer the convenience of factory-dyed textiles, though a few still maintain the old custom. Sannyasi literally means one who has renounced worldly life. Hindu monks undergo a rite of renunciation, in which they abandon all worldly pursuits and dedicate their lives to spiritual growth. They forsake marriage, career, prestige, and comforts, not merely as a religious austerity, but also for the freedom to live a simple, contemplative life. Most spend their days in meditation, prayer, and study. Some are involved in community service, as in Swami Sudananda's role as ashram manager. Some become spiritual teachers. Sannyasis are commonly addressed as Swamiji. Swami is a title, like doctor for physicians or reverend for ministers. The affix ji is appended to show both affection and respect. While Swami Sudananda and I were talking, a frail old woman in an orange sari entered the office. The sari's free end was drawn over her head, framing her deeply lined face. She was also a Swami, or to use the correct feminine form, a Swamini. Most people affectionately called her Mataji, respected mother. She was the matriarch of the ashram. In spite of her 70 years of age, she was always busy, either looking after the ashram's residents and guests, or engaged in her great love, gardening. I touched her feet and greeted her. "Mark, have you had lunch yet?" she asked. "Let me take you to the dining hall." "Thank you, Mataji, but I'm not hungry. I'm really tired after all the travel. Maybe I should rest a while. Besides, according to my watch, it's 2 a.m. right now. It may take a day or two to adjust to the time change." She turned to Swami Sudhananda and asked, "Did you give Mark a comfortable room?" He shrugged his shoulders. "Be sure to give him a room that has been cleaned properly." Swami Sudhananda disappeared into an adjoining room and returned with a key. Shouldering my backpack, I left the office and walked across the courtyard to a 3-story dormitory. I climbed to the 2nd floor and searched for my assigned room. I unlocked the door, flipped on the light switch, and watched the room's single fluorescent tube struggle to life, as if being awakened from a deep slumber. It eventually revealed the sparsely furnished interior. On one side was a wooden cot with a thin mattress. On the other side, a chair and a small table. Blue paint, faded and peeling, covered walls that were otherwise unadorned. The bathroom had a sink, shower, and the squat-style toilet common throughout Asia, but no hot water. Simple accommodations, to be sure, but ashrams are not meant to be luxurious. On the other hand, compared to some ashrams I had stayed in, I would give this place a 5-star rating. I threw open the window and gazed at the tree-lined lane adjacent to the ashram. Through the willowy trees, I could see the rounded outlines of nearby mountains. I started to unpack, but decided it could wait. I was too tired. I turned off the buzzing fluorescent light and lay down on the cot, examining a large spider web on the ceiling. I felt surprisingly comfortable, perhaps because I had stayed in an almost identical room the last time I was here. The raucous squawking of a flock of parrots startled me for a moment, but I soon fell asleep listening to the faint murmur of rushing water in the distance. Pardon me. The soothing voice of the Ganges. Alright, let us pause our reading there for now. So, Swami Tadatmanandaji, or as he was then known as, Mark, has arrived in his ashram and has fallen asleep to compensate for his jet lag. We will see what adventures awaits when he awakes.